up, everybody? It's your girl, Melissa Maganzo Murphy, coming to you live from An Action. And I'm so excited about today's episode with Emmy award-winning producer Allison Vanore. I'm so juiced about it. She is a producer, and I cannot wait to get into beautiful conversations with her. So, Allison, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. Happy to be here.
Yes, we are so happy and fortunate to have you here with us. And I hope you're ready to spill the tea because folks want to know how you're surviving in this virtual time.
I hear you. I'm ready.
Yes, it's so good to, it's just really good. So let's just get into it. Are you ready?
Sure.
Yeah, let's do it. So you have an incredible acting portfolio, wonderful profile of so many different productions, film projects, and really allowed people to see creativity and inclusion at its finest. But we don't know if you were always like this, or you were born to do this, or you discovered this along the way. So how did we get to know the Allison that we know today that we can really appreciate?
Oh goodness. I've always wanted to be a filmmaker. So I've always, since I was little, I was always making movies and went to school for it and then moved to Los Angeles. And I, bounced back and forth between New York and Los Angeles. My family's on the East Coast. I'm from New Jersey. So I've always been involved in telling stories. And, I think along the way, I've gotten more and more involved in organizations that are all about inclusion. So, through my time producing and also teaching, I've taught producing before as well. I've met some really great people, talented people that are also passionate about that as well. So that's how I'm involved now with Women in Media. And also, I've always just found myself drawn to projects that are telling stories that aren't normally told. So I've always had that desire to tell those stories, and I'm lucky that I've had the opportunity to do so.
And that's so good to hear too, because in this moment where so many different conversations about equity, diversity, inclusion in so many different industries, media is at the forefront of that, right? We capture all the stories. It really captures all the history, and it has the ability to shape the future. And you get to do that firsthand. It's so powerful. It is so powerful. You mentioned something. You mentioned Women in Media. Can you tell the folks more about that?
Sure. Well, Women in Media is a nonprofit that is all about gender parity on set. And so, we feel that in order to tell these types of stories that I've been talking about and the types of projects that I make, we need to have more women and more women of color behind the scenes, above and below the line. So it's not just about we need more female directors. We need more female camera operators. We need more female prop masters. We need more female, editors. So everywhere along, the way in terms of production, we need more women and we need more diversity, because that will just enhance the stories that we're telling and also lend authenticity to the stories we're telling. So, that's really important to me. And everything that we're doing, I'm on the executive board, and I've produced a bunch of the initiatives over the past couple of years. And it's really wonderful to see the, our mission come to fruition and see the women that are our members in our community succeed and get these next, the next big steps in their careers and kind of see them launch. It's been amazing.
Oh my gosh, it has to be amazing. And then being able to produce and work alongside other creators, I'm sure those conversations are so amazing. But let's think about when you first started, when you were like, I'm going to actually take a risk and put together a project. What was going through your mind? And I'm thinking about the folks that are like, I think filmmaking is my thing. I think acting and producing is my thing, but how can I be sure? Can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, because I went to college for it, it was always kind of my intention to move to Los Angeles. So, it's, if you're able to put yourself in the middle of a city where there's a lot of production going on, it makes it a little bit easier. But at this point, it's been interesting because of the pandemic and because we're all working virtually. It's really, it's given us a new way of looking at the work that we do, how we do it, and that a lot of this can be done from anywhere. So of course, we don't know if it's going to stay like this forever. But, it certainly has opened people's eyes to the possibilities. So, writers, editors. I mean, everybody under the sun. You think like you have to be in a certain city to do something. Well, guess what? Everybody's scattered all over the world right now.
Right.
And we're still, you know, it's hard, but we're still making things. So it's possible. And I think it's all about, I mean, I know people say this all the time, but it's really all about networking. But it doesn't actually mean that you have to be networking in person. Like I think you need to be active and talking to people and getting involved in organizations and groups of people that have, you know, have similar hopes and dreams, because you need a supportive community to be able to make it in this industry.
Oh, that's so true. That shared energy just fosters so much creativity. Absolutely. So I'm glad that you spoke to some of our up and coming folks that are out there thinking like, will this work? Can this work? Can we do it? You know? That's amazing. Well, what are some of the biggest networking opportunities you remember having when you were starting out that really changed the game or helped to foster that creativity?
You know, it actually was social media. So at the time when I moved to Los Angeles, social media was just in its infancy. But it was something that I was able to figure out how to turn into expanding a network of people. And I think there's still that opportunity now. Of course, there's more people, there's millions of more people on social networks now. But I think that there, you know, different communities have kind of carved out their space online in different places. So like, for instance, in the last year with all of the, you know, the issues that the Writers Guild has had to deal with the agencies and the code of conduct and, you know, firing the agents, the writers in the industry have found such a strong community on Twitter. And it's been amazing. I mean, you know, they're networking. They were doing, before COVID, they were doing in-person networking events. They're helping each other. They're reading each other's scripts. They're referring each other. It's just been beautiful to see. So each part of the industry has a place, and you just have to figure out where they are and how you fit into it.
You know what? I'll be honest. Sometimes Twitter has helped me find my way through things too. In the middle of the night, I'm like, Twitter just gets me. Twitter gets me. So yes, shout out to the community that social media can create, right?
Hey, I met my husband on Twitter, so you know.
On social media, look at that, life changing. I mean, I just think about Instagram. You know, even the concept of having a reel, right? This new feature, and that folks can actually create all of their material on this free platform. Where 10 years ago, I mean, you needed so much money to even get started, right? And now you can just tag your favorite person, and you're like, boom, you saw it. So you're so right. You're so right.
It's powerful.
It really is powerful. Well, you know what else is powerful, Allison? After Forever. Oh my God. I just wrapped up season 1 and it was so good. I was I was emotionally connected from the very beginning. Tell us how you even thought about this project. It's excellent.
Thank you. Well, you know, I was introduced to the creators, Michael Slade and Kevin Spiritus, quite a few years ago. I had produced a feature film called Daddy with Gerald McCulloch, and he introduced me to Kevin when they were looking for a producer, because Michael and Kevin have come from a very different, you know, space in the industry. Michael and Kevin met on the set of Days of Our Lives many years ago. And so Michael, you know, is a writer and Kevin's an actor, and they had a desire to tell this amazing story, this beautiful story of love and loss, but also about people men of a certain age in the gay community, and show them in a light that isn't seen on in the media, you know, and out there on film and television. So, you know, they were really excited about telling the story, and they didn't necessarily know how to pull it off when we're talking about digital series. And I have done quite a few digital series. So it was a really good collaboration to help bring them into the world of short form digital drama. And we are now season 1 and season 2 are both out. They're on Amazon. And you can binge watch it if you want. And we've done pretty well. We've been honored with 6 Emmys for the show. And, you know, hopefully after COVID, we'll be able to, you know, continue telling the story. And we might have something kind of up our sleeves during COVID for people coming up in, you know, December maybe.
That's kind of exciting. watching season 1 and looking at all these things that I was just like, wow, we've come so far in media. And not to say that these stories weren't already there, right? These were happening in real time, but be able to showcase it with the lens that normalizes the idea of different types of love, different types of loss, different types of energy. And I wrote down some themes that I just came across, and I want you to see if I'm head on or if I'm off.
Sure.
You let me know. So, queer love and marriage. Beautiful, beautiful. The idea of really moving past the boundaries of ageism, right? That love is not just for millennials. It's not just for Gen Z.
Exactly.
For everyone.
Exactly. Absolutely.
I love this like East Coast feel. I am a fall fanatic. So just having it in this like East Coast energy, I was like, it just makes the love even hotter, like sexier. There's like snow. It's doing a thing.
Yeah. There's nothing better than New York City. There just
right. Loving it. I don't know. I also thought about the concept of starting over, right?
Yep, absolutely. And these are all universal themes, right? Like everything that you're talking about, everybody experiences loss, everyone experiences love, and everyone experiences, trying to move on, figuring out how to move on in grief, right? So yeah, you're right on.
Yes. And I just recently on Twitter, our favorite platform, it's established.
Yes.
On Twitter, about when you're starting over, you're not starting from scratch, you're starting from experience. And I can totally see that underlying theme between them just trying to date again. Like, okay, I know how this feels. I want this love again. How do I get that back? I was like, oh, I could totally relate. I totally get you. Yeah. I saw dating and how awkward dating is. Dating is so awkward.
It is. It's painful sometimes, right?
Yes. Yeah. You're like, I hope this is gonna work. I hope I get home. Like, yes. I thought about the beauty of work relationships. Him and his work wife. I thought, because it's a real thing.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you think about how much time you spend with people when you work with them, right? It's like, especially in the entertainment industry, you're spending like 14 hours a day with people sometimes. You know them really well, right? And so you end up having to help them work through the things in their life, you can get very close. And that relationship between Brian and Brenda is very important. They definitely, they need each other and support each other. It's really wonderful.
And I love that they respectively had their own partners, right? It really shows this idea that you can genuinely be friends that turn into family and still have your respective relationships where there's this mutual respect for both people. I was just like, that is a real thing.
Yeah, and having that friend that calls you on it, like calls you on your shit.
Yeah,
you need that friend somewhere.
And then I thought about terminal illness, right? How there are so many folks that are battling these illnesses that are just like, how do I make peace with this is the card that I've been given? Like, how does my family make peace and healing and going through the medical industry of trying to find the best solution? I was like, that is so relatable. So many families go through that.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, and that's kind of unfortunately the inspiration for the show. And the thing that a lot of people have in common with the show is that we've all experienced somebody in our family or somebody that we love, coming, to terms with their, what a disease, and a fate that they can't escape. Right. So I think that, it's been beautiful, but, also so sad that we have so many fans write into Michael and Kevin to talk about like how much the show has meant to them, because it feels, it was able to represent the feelings that they felt when they went through a similar thing in their life. And so it's beautiful that we're able to touch people in that way, but it's just so unfortunate that everybody has that shared experience.
Right. And then the last thing I wrote down was just like normalizing transitioning, like death, and how it's something, I think it's the first or second thing that people are the most scared of, right? It's public speaking, death, and really saying like, this is the only option. Like there's no way getting around it, right? This is something that's a part of life, and just normalizing it. I was like, oh my goodness, this is just such a relatable show.
Totally. Well, yeah, thank you. Thank you for watching season 1. I'm really proud of it. And I do think that, with all of the stories that, I hope I continue to be a part of, they speak to us in those ways. Right. And I think as storytellers and creators, we have to continue to tell those stories, because that it informs the audience and tells, kind of opens people's minds to, we're all human, we all have these similarities, and it just hopefully, brings the compassion out of people. I think we need more of that these days.
Especially these days, especially in this virtual setting, we're binge watching what we do to heal sometimes, right? We like binge watch our way through a show.
Oh, yeah.
Speaking of a show like this, something that is at the forefront of this time in the world is equality, right? Equal right, having families of all different kinds have the same type of experiences and exposures. And this show hits that head on, right? This is a gay couple in their 50s, falling in love, experiencing life. What was it like creating a show around gay love at the center of it?
Oh, I mean, it's the cool thing is it's not that different, right? We all create our families, and we're not talking about blood families. We all create and surround ourselves with the people that we want to have in our lives. And hopefully we all have the opportunity to do that. So, that's the beautiful thing though, about the show, and about, the stories that I enjoy being a part of is being able to show, what family is, what love is, in whatever way that is meaningful to a person, right? So it's wonderful. It's wonderful being able to show and have that representation out there. It's interesting because looking at kind of the body of work and the things that I've produced and things I've gotten involved with, there are so many common themes across that, and that's one of them is just representation and telling these stories that are not told often enough.
Yes. And as a queer Black woman myself, I felt very seen and very heard. So I was super excited for that show. Yes. And it also let me know all the different features like on Amazon Prime. I was pleasantly surprised. Oh, this is included too. Okay. This is awesome. Yes. Well, we have season 2 and we have a clip that we can show our folks so they can get a sense of what season 2 is about. So let's go ahead and play it for our folks watching.
Everybody, may I have your attention to Brian and David. Cheers! Congratulations.
We both are so happy for you.
As are we. Why didn't you let David spend the night?
It's better this way, easier on everyone.
It's not that I want him to forget Jason. But did you notice how many times he referenced him tonight?
Jason and I were good together.
You and David could be good together, too. You can't compare what you had after 15 years with what you got after 6 months. You have to get there.
We build walls, Brian.
What's going on?
And the walls keep getting thicker. And that's not what I want for you.
So what is it? Has the sex gotten boring?
I really like it.
But
nothing. Once we're not 20-something, we've all got baggage.
But the person you should be talking to about this is not me. It's David.
Yeah, right.
He is your boyfriend.
God, you know how much I hate that word for people over 20.
When you're in a relationship, when you care about someone, you talk about the important things.
It was always so easy with you.
Was it? Or is that the mythology you built? Come here.
Maybe I don't want Brian with a wonderful guy. Someone might make him forget Jason.
He's never going to forget it.
If I want to have a future, I need you gone.
My heart is beating so fast. That looks so good. Oh my gosh, season 2, Brian. As an Emmy award producer, how do you even walk into season 2? Like so much happened with season 1, so many accolades, so many great conversations. How do you go, okay, it's time for season 2, and this is the storyline we're gonna do?
Well, the good thing was, Michael and Kevin envisioned a three season arc for the story. So while I totally get that, like at the end of the season, you're like, where could this possibly go? And you're gonna say the same thing at the end of season 2. Like where could this possibly go? But I think that's the whole point. What we're talking about in terms of like, it's an evolving process, right? We don't just, the parts of our lives don't just like start and end. They inform where we go next. So I think that there's still story to be told, and so much more we can dig into in season 2 and beyond. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. It just reminds me of what it's like in day 2. Like day 1, all these really interesting things happen. And then day 2, it kind of settles in that you have to move forward. And I feel like season 2 is like Brian's day 2. Like, okay, I'm going to try this again. I'm going to try love and marriage again. That's a huge risk.
For sure. Well, and what that brings, right? It's like, if you start dating somebody new, you're now opening yourself up to all their friends, their family, a whole new world of people, right? So it's not just the one person. There's all this other, whether it's other baggage, other people, it's all there, especially when you're talking about dating after 50, right? It's like you have your entire life experience that you're bringing to the table. So it's tricky.
Well, one thing I love that he said was, 20-year-olds and that term boyfriend. And I can totally relate. I remember when I got engaged, I went straight to wife. I didn't even use fiance because I was like, I'm not going around with this. We're either together or we're not. And I remember wanting to be comfortable with this like strong language. And I can see that Brian is trying to figure out like, what language do I want to use for this new sense of love? Like, am I brave enough to say husband, fiance? Am I comfortable with that? Am I betraying my partner? So it's good.
Exactly. Well, that's the thing. It's like all the, the social norms that we've had for so long, have all been built on, this heterosexual, relationship idea of a relationship, right? So it's like, I think also, the gay community looks at this and goes, well, how do we want to talk about ourselves? How do we want to, structure our lives and fit into the world, but make our own world too, right? Like, how do we influence the world to kind of embrace and open their eyes and do things a little differently?
Right. So you mentioned 6 Emmys. Wow. That's huge. That's huge. What was it like just hearing that you got a nomination, let alone you won? What was that feeling?
Oh my God. Oh, I mean, totally shocking. It's, of course, it's like one of those things that you always like hope and dream, of, and you never think you're actually going to get there. And it's like, no, you don't ever like walk into a project and go like, this is the one. But when you have a project that just has so much heart, so many amazingly talented people involved, it's so wonderful when something amazing like that happens, because it's like couldn't have happened to a better project, right? To a better show. And everybody involved is just so amazing. So yeah, learning about the nomination was amazing. But the actual win, like when we won Outstanding Digital Series, we're blown out of the water because we won, a couple other categories, in 2019 when we were up for it the first time. And we were like, wow, like we've already won, supporting actress and actor and writing and director. And then all of a sudden we were like, series, like this is insane. And we were up against some amazing other shows. And it was just a totally unbelievable moment.
Well, what made you want to do Amazon Prime? I think for me, I was pleasantly surprised that it was roughly like 8-minute to 10-minute episodes. So it's like one of those things that you can like sneak in during a work break. You're like, season 2 right now really quickly,
Yeah.
That was like enough. Like, how did you know that was what it needed?
Well, for us, our goal has always been to reach the biggest and widest audience possible. And so one of the things, that comes with being able to go with Amazon is like the prestige of like, we're on Amazon, it's accessible to so many people. And then we're also available on binge networks, which allows us to be accessible in other countries around the world that Amazon doesn't allow us to be on. So we just want to make sure that the most people get the biggest audience possible, right? We just want the story to get out there. And also, being a short form series, it can be hard to find distribution and find that place that makes sense. The show was written to be bingeable. So it's kind of like, each season is like sitting down and watching a movie, and it just feels like it just goes, really fast. You don't even realize you're like, I'm on season, episode 6. Like, how am I here? But that's the idea. It can be these bite-sized moments where, on your lunch break, you can watch an episode or two, or you can sit down and all of a sudden you're like, I just watched 90 minutes of this show, and that's fine too. It's totally doable, but it was created in that way. And I think, Michael and Kevin, I think, just had a blast and just did it beautifully, where they had never made something that was short form before, but crafted the show to that, knowing that that's what it's going to be. It was never a feature, it was never intended to be longer. It's exactly what it was meant to be.
I mean, the show has such great chemistry, but it made me think about when you see yourself in media, it has the ability to show you more about yourself. Like, it's like looking at yourself in the mirror and you're like, oh my gosh, that's me. I need to learn that about myself. Or let me take a moment. As a producer and being involved with the show, what have you learned about yourself that you feel like the show is represented, or, that you've just picked up along the way? Like, ooh, I have this, or I didn't notice this before.
I think it, more than anything, it's more of a like behind the scenes type of thing. The amount of support that has come out of the show and the people who want to make sure that it happens. Our show is not a huge budget show, but it looks amazing, and we have amazing locations because of the people who gave us the money to do it, because they just so badly believed in the story. And also a lot of the people involved have lost somebody in their lives as well. And so it just everything behind the show comes from this place of like heart. And it's amazing what you can do when you have people that are that passionate and, excited about something. Anything can happen. I mean, we pulled off amazingly, insane feats with such limited resources, and you might not ever realize that. Yeah.
I mean, just thinking about it, how do you know when a project is done? Like, how do you know, like, this is the cutoff, like, is it a feeling? Do you write everything out? Do you have like that friendship circle that's like, all right, I'm going to read this to y'all and y'all let me know?
It's a couple different things, right? It's like with experience, you know when something is at that point. There's also, there's deadlines, and there's a goal, and there's a plan. So, I'm the person with the plan, and I lay it out, and this is, I'm very logical, and what's the problem, and we're going to solve it, right? So, there's always a bigger, game plan in place that we always have to work towards. So we can't noodle something forever. We have to, this is an industry where we make art, but it's also a business. So there's this balance you have to find between the two, right? So, you never want to compromise the creative, but you always have to. At some point, you have to say, okay, that's it. You have to stop, or that's not going to work. But it also makes us more creative, right? When we have challenges, it makes us more creative, and sometimes something better comes out of it.
That's so true. And balance is so important. You know what? Something to think about in this virtual time is the idea of balance and like caring for ourselves holistically. How do you find yourself staying motivated, but also well balanced in this virtual time?
Oh God. Like anybody, right? This was like a super scary thing that happened, because when I look back at the beginning of my year, this year was going to be insanely busy. I had like 3 or 4 features. I had Season After Forever. I had other Project Jeffrey that I'm sure we'll talk about in a second. But and on top of it, a film that I executive produced was going to Tribeca. We were going to NAB with Women in Media. Like, there's like so many things that were supposed to happen, and then it all just like came crashing down. Right? I went to Sundance, came back, and all of a sudden it was like, and we're home. So. It's super depressing, right? And just like from a business and like career standpoint, although everybody's going through the same thing, right? So that was like the one reassuring thing. It's like we're all dealing with the same craziness, but also on a personal level, right? So I think we have to recognize that we are all going through trauma on so many different levels. Right. And that's okay. And as much as I still find myself like beating myself up when I want to like sit on the couch for 20 minutes and veg, and I'm like, wait, but I have an email to write, it's like, you have to give yourself that grace. But I found that having a connection, even if it's virtual, has been a lifesaver. And it's one of the things that we were really fortunate to be able to pull off with Women in Media. I mean, our year for the organization was just so like beautifully laid out. We had all these grand plans, but we immediately pivoted to virtual, and we have been doing we've been doing events, it feels like nonstop since the beginning. Like we did a cocktail party networking event on Zoom in like early March, and we had like 80 ladies on the call, and some people were in their pajamas. Some people were like all done up because they, it's like come however you would like, and chat and talk, and let's figure out what we need, and let's just kind of relax for a little bit. And these events that we've been doing, some of them are very educational, other ones are more networking and entertainment. They've just really, I think, kept people inspired, enthusiastic, positive, and like being able to see each other's faces, and see that other people are going through similar things has been really inspiring to the whole community. And so I definitely encourage people, don't just sit alone in your home, like, attend a couple events, find out, I don't know if they're all wonderful, but just find something you can be involved with, because it really does inspire you to keep going.
Right. And, community is what people need right now, like especially in this virtual time. And you mentioned a new show coming up. What can we look for? Yeah.
So I'm producing it's a short film, but it's a proof of concept for a TV show. So it's kind of like a pilot, but it's called Jeffrey, and it is actually something very unique. So as some of you may have heard before, TV shows like The Mandalorian, they used the LED panels and the technology of like the Unreal Engine real-time rendering to do backgrounds and kind of like landscapes for some of the scenes in The Mandalorian, and other movies and TV shows have done it before. The really exciting thing about the Project Jeffrey is that we're using that technology to do something that's never been done before. And so we're bringing, instead of doing those like landscape shots or those, far off background shots, we're actually bringing the virtual world much closer to the action, and really testing a lot of things on an LED stage that's never been done before. And so we've got a lot of really great, sponsors and supporters that are helping us get this piece done. And it's beautiful. It's written and directed by Connie Sue, who has written this, like, it's basically a, what does she call it? A magical romance. So it's, it's going to be really beautiful. It's very complicated and complex the way we are going to be, filming it and creating this world. But it's all going to be really amazing and worth it when it's done. So it's been quite a trick to
awesome.
Yeah.
Is it also going to be on Amazon Prime too?
No, I mean, that one we're going to wait and see, festivals, for the initial piece, right? So the piece that we're making, we're doing like a 10-minute piece of it. And then we will use that to, pitch and see if somebody wants to, fund doing a TV series. So, because it's going to take a lot of backing and support. It's not a low budget thing. A lot of really, talented technical people working on it to make it happen. So I'm really excited about that.
Well, definitely keep us posted, because I don't know about you. I text my group chat all the time, like, what is everybody watching on Netflix? I need something new.
Yeah, exactly.
And they just run me a list of all these shows. So we can always use a new good show to watch, or a good film to just like fall into,
Absolutely.
Something I love to do with my guests is to have a 1-minute interview where we ask you questions right on the spot and you give us your honest answer.
Uh-oh. Okay.
Interview, Allison?
Sure.
All right, let's do it. We'll put a minute on the clock. All right. Hot or cold?
Hot.
Coffee or tea?
Coffee.
Okay. Cream or sugar?
Cream.
Fall or summer?
Summer.
Marker or color pencil?
Color pencil.
Laptop or phone?
Oh.
I know.
Phone, I guess.
The phone can do a laptop thingy too. So
right.
I see what you did there.
Yeah.
Apple or Android?
Apple.
Pen or pencil?
Pen.
Laugh or cry?
Laugh.
Long or short?
Long.
Headphones or AirPods?
Headphones.
Headphones. Beach or forest?
Beach.
Socks or barefoot?
Ooh, barefoot.
Yes!
Although, like, some of those answers, I'm like, depends on what we're talking about here. But
I know, it's like, who's around? What's the situation? Where am I at? What am I doing?
Right. Exactly.
You did great.
Thanks.
Well, that's going to start off our Q&A. I know folks that are watching have some questions for you. I want to make sure they get a chance to ask, and we can definitely speak to some of their curiosities and their needs. So we're going to pop over to some of the questions to see what they have. The first one is from Alexandria. Do you have any advice as far as audition and how to land a role, or just giving your best audition?
Oh, goodness. Good question. I would say, for us, it's sometimes you feel it when somebody is giving an amazing audition. And I don't think, it's something that comes from within. Obviously, it doesn't help you. That does not advice. But I think just come in and give it your all. I think some of the best auditions I've ever seen have been when people take a risk and just go for it. Just dive into it. Give us what you really, truly feel that character is embodying. And you'll be surprised, because we feel that. We feel the authenticity come out. And even if it's a bold choice, I say, go for it, because maybe that's exactly what we're looking for. Or maybe it's the thing we didn't know we were looking for.
Ooh, and I think that's really good for folks to hear, because sometimes, you'll get a script and you'll say, okay, I want to be exactly what they told us to be. But then you get there, you might spice it up and actually change the character, right? So that's great advice.
I mean, everybody brings their own experience, right? So I think there's nothing better than surrounding yourself with creative people, which includes actors, and seeing what they're bringing to the table, because you're just going to make your show or your film is just going to be that much more powerful for those experiences being brought into the mix.
That is so good. As we let more questions come in, how important is location at this point in this virtual world? How important is location for folks that are like, I'm willing to go to LA, I'm willing to fly to Atlanta, I'll even fly to, who knows, Europe, because I'm available?
You know what? It's interesting. It's like, I feel like it's the opposite, right? So, we're in pre-production on a couple of things right now, and it's like some people are out of town, and that actually is a little problematic for us, because I don't want people to travel during a pandemic, and put themselves at risk and then have to quarantine or whatever. But what's happening though, a lot of productions are leaving Los Angeles or leaving New York because it's so restrictive right now to film in these cities. So I'm actually seeing a lot of productions are going to places that don't normally have a lot of productions. So you might find yourself, in Colorado or Utah, where there's actually more productions coming in, or New Jersey, because it's easier to film there, because the numbers are better and because they're just, been able to make that happen. So I think, try to figure out how to keep your finger on the pulse for things happening in your area, because that's exactly what's happening. So many people are having to go outside of these, hubs to make things right now.
And thank goodness for Casting Calls America for just holding things down in this pandemic and allowing folks to still express themselves creatively, in this virtual space. There's so many folks doing Zoom auditions now that we may never go back.
Oh, I know. Exactly. I mean, that's like the possibilities are kind of, it's interesting and it's exciting, right? It's like, one of my good friends is a casting director, and she's like, I don't think we're ever going back, to what we were doing before, maybe for like callbacks or like, chemistry tests and stuff, but, we're virtual and self-tape. It's like here to stay.
I completely hear you. Brian is asking, what was your first job in production? That's such a good question.
Oh, goodness. I went to the University of Arizona, and just as I was graduating, there was a feature film that was shooting in Benson, Arizona, which is outside of Tucson. And I was like, well, I need to work on that. It ended up being quite an experience. But it was a, kind of a decent sized budget horror film with just, I mean, you think about anything you could throw into a horror film, it was all in it. So it wasn't that great. But I came, I jumped on as a PA, right? And so I didn't have very much experience, but I was like, I'm going to dig in and I'm just going to do what I need to do to learn as much as I can. And so, you know, it was a great experience seeing how things were being done. And, you know, the exciting thing about that was after 18 days of shooting, there was a couple days left and I got my first job offer in LA. So I just packed up my car as soon as that movie ended and drove to LA and started work on Monday. So you know, it was kind of crazy.
But those are the best stories.
Yeah. Like, you know, yeah, it was pretty insane. So, but you know, you just got to be hungry, right? You never know what opportunities are going to present themselves, and you have to be ready to do it, right? So, you know, it's like, oh, can you be in LA by Monday? Yeah.
Yes, I can.
You know, what can I fit in my car? That's what I'm taking with me. So yeah, that's what happened.
You know, that's so good to hear too, because I think about maybe some of our younger actors that are like in high school or maybe starting college that are like, I want to study the right major. I want to volunteer or get on the right projects. Do you feel like there's such a thing as the right major and the right project?
You know, I don't, because I feel like you learn so much about yourself when you go to college, or when you start a new job, or you try, you know, you intern for somebody. I feel like you learn a lot about yourself, and it's always, I think, more important to learn what you don't like than what you do. So if you make the wrong choice, that's fine, because you're going to figure it out pretty fast, and you're going to, you know, start just like kind of crossing things off the list, like, okay, that's not for me, you know? And so I think as long as you're putting yourself in a position where changing directions is okay, and you're allowing yourself to make those choices. I mean, it's always, you know, I always have to remind people, like, you did not sign a contract that you are stuck in this thing for the rest of your life, right? You know, and I get it. Like, I'm a very loyal person. So like when I take a job or when I start working for somebody, I'm like, I'm going to through in the end. Nothing is forever. And, you know, I think you just got to feel it out. And if something's not working, if something doesn't feel right, if you're working with somebody you don't want to stay working with, move on. Find another opportunity, figure out how to safely move on to the next thing. I think that's fine.
Well, where did you learn about production? Was it like just on set that you just actively were around these different people and you like learned the language and got the feel of the industry? Or was it in college? Was it like an internship that you were like, oh, this is it?
You know, I mean, I started taking media classes in high school, and then I went to college. I was in the film program at the University of Arizona. So learned a lot of things in those settings for sure. But really the best place was on set, or, you know, in LA once I started working on production. So, you know, when I first moved to LA, the job that I got in LA was actually for a post-production house. We were doing a lot of motion graphics, 3D animation, graphic design. And I actually didn't know very much at all about that. But I was like, okay, you need an assistant? Great, I'm there. And they were like, what do you know, the head of animation was like, what do you know about 3D animation? And I was like, nothing. And he was like, then why are you in my office? And I was like, I'm going to go help the production manager.
I'll be back.
But, you know, you never know what you're going to learn. I mean, I learned a ton. I was there for 4.5 years. I started as an assistant. I started assisting the production manager, and I ended up as the production manager and eventually the director of creative operations at the company. So, you know, and I decided I didn't want to be in that type of a role, you know, forever. But the information and the technology and the skills and the types of people that I worked with and oversaw there have, you know, those skills have taken me, you know, the project I'm on right now, right? Jeffrey, super technical. You know, we're dealing with animators, we're dealing with compositors, we're dealing with all of these things that I at least can speak the lingo and like understand on a certain level what's being said. I may not understand it all. You know, once they start going into like, you know, super tech, I'm like, I have no idea what you're talking about. But I have enough knowledge because of that experience that I'm able to communicate. And I think, you know, especially as a producer, as a director, and really anybody on set, or in, you know, actors too, the more knowledge you have about the process, the more valuable you're going to be, right? Mm-hmm. So if you understand, you know, it's like the most amazing things that I've seen from an actor even is like when you're on set and an actor is like, you know, glancing, sees what lens is on the camera and knows exactly where that frame is and exactly what they have to work. You know, it's like those types of moments, like that's what makes an amazing actor, you know, and not obviously they have to act too. But it's like taking that extra step to understand the tools and what the other people are doing and how they're making you look and how they're going to like, you know, get the image and get the scene. And it just, those are the additional things that just puts you onto that next level.
Oh my goodness. That's amazing. And that, again, great feedback for our folks watching to really know about those tips and tricks and strategies about how to be successful in this industry. Now we have to ask, because sometimes it feels like when you're watching a show, you've seen the same show 6 times with new characters, sometimes the same people in the background. You're like, is that the same extra from the other show? How do you find creativity and how do you stay creative?
Oh, goodness. You know, I think number one, it's really good to stay involved and stay on the like kind of cutting edge of the stories that are being told. It's like in the film festival world, in the competitions, knowing what people are doing, what people are making, the stories people are telling. Also just kind of paying attention to who are kind of those up and coming people that are about to hit it big. There's so many wonderful stories, especially online, right? It's like if you can find you know, those creative people that are creating because they love it and that's what they want to do, and then you see them kind of like they skyrocket, like their videos go viral or whatever it is, because they've made something so amazing that nobody can stay away from it, right? Everybody's watching it, everyone's sharing it. That's those things are just, I think, like I find inspiration in that, because a lot of the times, because I have a couple of my friends who are doing very well in the industry now, they started out that way. They were like, you know what? I'm going to learn how to do this thing, or I have an idea and I'm just going to go out and I'm going to figure out how to make it. I'm going to do it on my own with like $2. You know, it's like my friend Justin, he's like, I'm going to teach myself 3D animation and I'm going to make a robot and I'm going to make a short film about a robot. And, you know, and it just, from there, he just kept going and kept challenging himself. And eventually, you know, he's getting calls from TV shows like, hey, we want you to come do this thing, or, you know, we want you to make this show for us. And, you know, it's like, just because he challenged himself, he did exactly what he wanted to do. He made something he thought was amazing. And because he thought it was amazing, guess what? There's a lot of people out there that probably think it's amazing too. So,
great.
Yeah.
It sounds like staying hungry and believing that you're doing good work is like the key, right? If you believe it, then people can believe it. But if you don't believe it, then what are we doing here, right? Like, you do have to reach down and find a little bit of that confidence, because, you know, nobody feels confident in somebody who doesn't have any confidence in themselves. So even if you fake it until you make it, right? So yeah, you have to know that, you know, if you're excited and passionate about something, there's plenty of people out there that are going to have the same feeling about it. That is so true. That is so true. So for the future, Allison, right? So when you look back and be like, I called it, I named it, I spoke it, I believe it. What are some of the things that the future Allison is going to bring to the world? Are you thinking about life after production? Do you think it's production forever? Have you thought about life after production?
I guess not. I think I've always wanted to do this, and I've never really thought about doing anything else. Although, you know, I do think that, you know, our world is changing dramatically, and I'm excited about the opportunity that it can, because I think while the pandemic has been terrible on so many levels, I think it's also given us a chance to pause and really think about how do we want our world to be after this? Do we want to continue doing things a certain way, the way that they've been done for a long time, or is there a better way to do it? And I am, you know, while, you know, I'm continuing on this path to tell these stories, I want to also figure out if we can inspire a new way of living, right? And a new way to be in this world. Because I think that's really important. And I think that, you know, even the entertainment industry, I feel like this is a time to change the things that were not so great about it. And that's, you know, a big part of what I'm doing with Women in Media, is making sure that, like, as we come out of this, there's more inclusion, you know. Yes. You know, it's a big part, but it's also only one part of a very big, crazy, wonderful puzzle that has some dark, dirty secrets that if we can make it a safer, more inclusive space moving forward, that's what I want. So yeah, trying to figure out and imagine what the new world is going to be, what the new normal is going to be.
And that's really important too. When I think about inclusion, I think about how important it was for me to see folks that look like me on camera, right? In storybooks, in school images, social media. You want to be able to say like, my identity, my presence exists in the world. Like I'm meant to be here. And the shows that you are producing just amplify that to the nth degree. Especially thinking about the babies that are going to be born now, and they're going to be born into a more equitable, more inclusive world where they always saw themselves. They always saw this on TV. This wasn't new or groundbreaking. It was like, of course, I saw this on TV. This exists. This is normal. And I just love to use your agency to do that.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, that is one of the really exciting things to see is the younger, the kids and the generations coming up now and how different their point of view is in such a good way. There's so many, teenagers right now. It's like there's certain things that they're like, not even like, who cares? Like, don't care about that. Like what, it's wonderful to see that they are just they're so far past where we were, which is great. It's good to see that growth because we need it.
We do need it. Well, what advice do you have to our listeners? So just thinking about folks that are like, okay, you told me all of this, but what are your top 3 pieces of advice that you would say, these are the 3 things to keep in mind as you continue to build and grow?
I think surround yourself with people that are creative and better at certain things than you are. So, one of the first projects I ever worked on, ever produced was a web series, back when we called it web series, called Solo the Series. And the reason that I jumped into that was because it was a tweet up, met a bunch of people in person that I had met on Twitter. And one guy was sitting there saying, well, I created this show. I have this amazing story. And he started telling us all about it and everyone was super engaged. And then he said, and I said, well, why don't you make it? And he said, because I don't have a spaceship. and then I said, well, you need to build a spaceship. And his friend, another guy sitting there in the bar was like, I'll come over and help you build a spaceship. And then I said, great. So when you guys have a spaceship, call me and I'll produce your show. And they were like, really? And that's what we did.
Oh my God.
So you just gotta do it. Yeah, you gotta surround. It's like someone had an amazing story. Someone had the ability to come over and help something. And then we just kind of looked around the room and said, well, who's here? How can we help? Let's figure it out. And we had a blast and we learned so much from that. And that was what launched my digital series career. And look, now it's like with this show and others, I worked on a show called Dark Web, which also won an Emmy for lighting this year. Just like, these are all digital series. So it's, you never know. It's like from that moment, from that tweet up in a bar in the Valley, we decided let's make a spaceship and make a show. And, here we are. So.
Oh, that's amazing. That is so great. So basically, everybody, Twitter, again, is a common thing. If you want to change your life, you need to get on Twitter and make it happen.
It can be used for good, I promise. There's...
Where can folks find you online? Do you have any social media handles you would like to share for folks who are listening?
Yeah, you can. You can Google my name and find all the socials, but I'm Allicine everywhere. So ALLIECINE. So Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, of course, LinkedIn, all the places, but not the places where, like TikTok, don't know how to use that, all the other, I'm too old now for that, apparently.
You never know. Next year we could be right here on TikTok doing something.
You know what? I say that, but then I'll get a call and they'll be like, hey, can you produce this thing for TikTok? And I'm like, yes, I can. So you never, I produced a show for the app called, oh my God, I'm totally blanking. Oh, Yarn, for the Yarn app, which is like a text it's a chat fiction, and we did chat fiction with video and images and stuff. It was very crazy, very crazy. So you never know.
There's so many apps out there too. I'm like, yarn. Okay, let me look that up.
Yeah, crazy stories and stuff. So
we have a final question from for this. Harley, I have a script and I have recently finished it, and it's my first script for screen. How can someone with no experience and no context get a producer to look at the script? I have done a lot of reading with some close friends, but still need support.
So, I mean, a couple things that you can do is, like, number one, I think it's always great to, join a writer's group. And there's a lot of writers groups that are virtual right now. So that's a great way to expand your network of writers that might have some contacts that could be beneficial to you. If they read your stuff and they think it's great, they may say, hey, you know what? You need to talk to this person over here, right? Another thing to do would be to enter some contests. Certainly do your research, though. And see what people are saying about certain contests or certain film festivals that have screenplay competitions. But that's a really great way to also get different new eyes on your stuff, get your name out there. If you're able to win some awards, some of these competitions give you opportunities to meet and pitch and meet with executives and workshop your script. So it's a really good way to get your stuff out there and start kind of making a name for yourself and meeting people, because that's really what it's all about is the networking and meeting the right people. So get it out there, and don't be afraid to have people read your stuff. Don't be afraid that people are going to steal your work. Get out there. That's why you write it, right? You write it because you want an audience and you want people to see your work on the screen. So you got to get people reading all your work.
All right, you hear that, folks? You got to take a risk. You got to take a risk and just show your work, because you have everything that it takes inside of you. Allison, thank you so much for your time. It has been such a pleasure just chatting with you and learning more about your background and all of the amazing things you've done. We can't wait to hear and all the additional Emmys that are going to be behind your name, because you're putting in all this good work. We just really appreciate it. We're sending you good love, big energy, and definitely safe vibes as you navigate this virtual world and still create.
So thank you so much. I appreciate that.
All right, everybody.
Good luck, everyone.
Yes, have a wonderful evening.